Levin, great to meet you. Welcome to Pop Turner. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Pete. Yeah, nice to meet you.
You know, it's exciting because I feel like a lot of movies in the kind of thriller, horror, sci-fi world right now, we're not really reinventing the wheel much. They've always been around, but there's this big appetite and surge for this content. So with Last Night on Earth, like what's that like kind of working on a film at a time where there is a big appetite for that content right now? I'm curious about that.
Yeah, I'm so happy that it's coming out right now. And it has that sci-fi thriller, but also physical danger element, and the Last Night, on Earth, like those psychological, emotional elements. And so, there was a lot of jumps in the audience at the premiere. My dad, his jaw was on the ground. And my dad is 78 years old and he thought it was one of my better movies. So so it really has something for everyone. And it's an emotional journey, but it's super thrilling as well. So I'm happy to be a part of it. And it's fun to film those too.
You can answer this in general with this project specifically, but I feel like it's very interesting because so much happens before you go to camera for a project, right? There's a lot of kind of discussions and like the pre-production and everything. So in a lot of ways, from an acting storyteller perspective, I feel like it could be looked at as two separate journeys, right? Like one before filming and after filming, or does it feel like one big journey with multiple steps? I'm curious about that.
I think it feels like kind of one big journey with multiple steps. Like you kind of get the call that you're going to do this movie and you start getting into the script and you start breaking it apart and you start seeing things that you want to change, and you meet with the director. And luckily he was the director and the writer of this movie, Marcos. And the story was really personal to him. And I really wanted to kind of make it a female story, right? Like I'm the lead and he's a male. And so I was like, how can we make this like really true on camera to what a woman would be going through in the situation where civilization is ending in a week, and then those emotions. And so, yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, not your first movie in this survival kind of genre, right? A little bit.
Definitely not. Yeah.
I feel like in a lot of ways your answer to this question would be like they're separate, but you obviously take things because it's your experiences. But like, do you ever take things from things like Hunger Games or past projects to current projects, or are they very separate for you specifically?
Oh no, they're definitely the same. I mean, there's certain tones and certain moments and beats and things that feel familiar to you that you're like kind of a comfort zone. So like, yeah, I've been on a lot of survival, The Purge, The Hunger Games, Gone. I like dealing with like high adrenaline situations. It's just like, fun for me. I'm very physical and active, and I write about that in my book, like how I somehow ended up playing in all these roles. But that's just what I'm drawn to. I don't love rom-coms for myself. I like to have something to really do, and I'm just, I don't know, very violent, I guess. But I think I can pull moments that feel like they would like look good, or serve the story from like The Hunger Games, or from, especially from other movies that I watch that maybe I'm not necessarily in, but, Melancholia was a big reference for me for this movie. Again, like Kristen Dunst's character and, all the emotional kind of mental stuff she goes through. Like it reminded me of that. So I kind of like tried to soak in her performance. And it's one of my favorite movies, so it wasn't hard, but again, drawn to dark material. That's just what makes me happy.
Yeah, and it's exciting because your memoir, The Glimmer Game, is going to be coming out May 17th, so people could be able to pre-order that now, which is exciting. Congratulations. That's so exciting.
Thank you.
I'm really curious, as much as you can kind of say without kind of giving much away of the book, but like, I feel like when you're like a band, right, you're in like the recording studio and you're like recording like 18 songs, right, but there's only room for like 10 on the record, right? What's that selection process for you for the memoir? Like, is that like there's certain stories you want to have in there? There's certain things you like maybe like had in there or took out? Like, was like in terms of what's going to be in the memoir, what was that like for you specifically?
Yeah, I could have written a 45,000 page memoir.
That's what I'm saying.
Every project that I've ever been in and what went on behind the scenes. Not all of it so pretty all the time. But I chose to kind of focus in on the Hunger Games role, Glimmer, and that stage of my life when I was like 21, 22, filming that movie, and what led to me getting there, how I started acting at 14, and all the unseen drama that took place in order for me to get that role in
Yeah.
particular. I was like fired from something else, and people didn't believe in me, and you know and then I booked that role, and then it was the preparation and the shooting and the camaraderie on set. And I really did it for the fans of the Hunger Games that
Yeah.
constantly asked me every single day what it was like to be in the movie. So I was like, I'll just write a book. And but I did want to add more context, so I do talk about Wizards of Waverly Place and Grey's Anatomy.
Yes.
And it's really like about my mental journey through all of it. It's very personal and deep, and I want people to see that it wasn't all just like gravy and fun. It was like I had a lot of anxiety. I had panic attacks. It goes deeper, and it's very heartfelt.
Well, I think it's interesting too, because diving into that world from the creative side of things and the machine that it is, like the Hunger Games movies are like they're huge. You know what I mean? The scale is just big all across, right? So just like getting back to like my journey question or anything, like I feel like those definitely maybe like felt maybe like two separate journeys, because I feel like before even filming that, there's so much that goes into a movie and a franchise like that, right? Or did that still feel like one journey?
No, definitely. Like there wasn't as much like collaboration with the director. It wasn't as intimate. It was, millions of people on the set. And as a part of it, it was definitely like before was training and preparing and dieting and, really extreme focus on that movie and that role and everything that went into creating like the world of Pan Am, and just it's a totally different world. And then getting there in North Carolina, from the day that we got there to rehearsing those, long cornucopia fights and, hanging around on set when there's hours in between and the blazing heat and getting destroyed by mosquitoes and, all of us being starstruck. So yeah, it was definitely more of like the beginning and then the shooting. And then afterwards, all of our lives basically changed, like it was, we knew it was going to be a hit, but it was, it's one of like the biggest movies of all time. So, and just the fans in particular for this franchise are just so intense, and that's so awesome. So yeah, it was definitely 3 different parts, like before, during, and after.
I mean, it's not like the only project you've worked on that had kind of source material before what you worked on, right? So I'm just wondering, like, does it depend on the project, or like, do you have a specific mindset when it comes to working on something that is adapted from a book or something else? Like, do you kind of leave it alone? Do you use it as research? Like, what's your mindset like that? I'm just curious about that.
Yeah, I definitely, read the book obviously and use it as research, but I have to kind of treat the script as its own like open and closed thing, because that's what we're shooting, and we have to be loyal to that story, not the book, and not things that, so I have to kind of treat there are like, sometimes like things I'll circle in the book and that I want to like add, like either internally or my performance, or it just informs a lot more, like it gives you more imagination to play with. And sometimes, and I really love that about having source material, and I love that about playing real life people too. So there's just so much to pull from, and sometimes you can put it in and sometimes you don't, but it always helps.
100%. I feel like if you look at the life of an actor and a storyteller, there's a lot of things that some people know about, and sometimes there's a lot of misconceptions. Like I think, there's a lot of situations where I feel like a lot of people, fans think that the actors, know everything that's going on, and like, and you're here to tell me sometimes that that's definitely not the case at times. But like specifically like this on to the next, like diving in all these different journeys, Leven, I think is really interesting. And I think that's a really big part of the storyteller kind of actor life. What is that like for you, having to kind of continually like dive into all these different worlds, whether it's like Grey's Anatomy, CSI, like the Hunger Games, like, because I feel like that is interesting, because it's like different worlds with different characters you have to play. Like, what is that like on to the next world after world like for you as an actor?
Yeah, I write about that a lot in the book. There's like a chapter on that, how I was playing Rosie on Wizards of Waverly Place while I was auditioning for Glimmer. And I say that's what actors have to do, just on a dime, kind of allow a new, like, imaginative scenario.
Yep.
Hopefully, especially if you love the story, like it's kind of easy to start visualizing like this other world that you're going to jump into. Sometimes you're not all in it at all. Like you don't get it and it's not clicking, but and that's okay. But for me, I loved the story of the Hunger Games so much that when I was reading the book and the script during my time on Wizards of Waverly Place, like it couldn't have been more different, like I was on like a
we're going way
kid's
back.
show,
Yeah.
You
were the Angel of Death, right?
Angel, yeah, Dark Angel.
Dark
yeah.
Angel, yeah. Well, it was like a play on the Angel of Death, maybe. I don't know.
It's a little dark for Disney, but yeah, it's something like that. Yeah.
No, because like you said, it's funny because you were talking about the projects and you mentioned Wizard Waverly Place, and like that's going way back for me. So I'm kind of like thinking, and I'm like, yes, I do remember the character you played.
Yeah, I just did a podcast with Jennifer Stone and David DeLuise, the Wizards of Waverly pod. So
yes.
Yeah, it's been a long time, but I just did that interview a couple of days ago. So it's all fresh in my mind. And because, Glimmer's Game, writing that, I really went back into what I was thinking and feeling. And I was on the set of Wizards and I was 19 years old and I was reading this book and I was just like fascinated by the Hunger Games and I couldn't stop thinking about it. So yeah. I was really excited to dive into that world. And it's not always like that. You don't always respond to a story that much, but I did. And I think millions of other people did too.
No, absolutely. And some important dates. I mean, the Glimmer Game, your memoir, it's going to be available May 17th. And then Last Night on Earth is going to be available in select theaters May 31st. And then going to be available on iTunes as well. So 2 important dates. Leven, so great chatting with you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Pete. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, there's an Instagram account where people keep up to date with everything, right? Is it just
Yes, mine.
Yeah, it's just Leven Rambin.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, this has been Pop Alternative, youtube.com/Pop Alternative for previous episodes. Until next time, this is Leven and PD Beats signing off.
Thank you for tuning in to Pop Alternative. Make sure to check out our past episodes of Pop Alternative on YouTube.
This has been an Autograph Communications production.